Sato is an ugly loser virgin with no riz, yet by pure chance he ends up marrying a baddie, who also happens to be the classmate he hates most. One morning they meet in the hallway before school and Akane grabs him by the tie, threatening to kill him if he reveals their secret. Turns out, 4 days earlier, Sato had married his rival, Akane, the very girl who constantly scolds him. The day before, she had berated him for messing up the class log, nitpicking every mistake until Sato snapped and told her to go read a book. She retorted that she was too busy fixing his bad attitude. Himari intervenes, asking Akane to go easier on Sato, but Akane shifts the blame, claiming he disrespects everyone. Himari questions why Akane is so obsessed with Sato, catching her off guard. Akane angrily denies having any feelings for him, shouting she'd never fall for him even if he were the last man alive. Just then, Shisai, a white-haired loli, shows up to comfort Sato, her cousin, bringing him some relief. Meanwhile, Akane and Sato continue bickering with equal irritation. After school, Sato gets a call from his grandfather, who requests a private talk. As the heir of the family company, Sato remains uninterested, prompting his grandfather to have him taken by force. Once inside a luxury car, the men accompanying him refuse to reveal their destination, apologizing for their master's abruptness. However, the Holy Sister refuses to tolerate this love and compassion crap. Even at 60, Tenryu is sharp and still runs the company. The driver mentions that despite appearances, the master cares for Sato more than his father did. Upon arriving at the residence, Akane appears and asks why he's there. Sato explains he was forced to come, and Akane says her grandmother did the same to her. They immediately start bickering over trivial things, but their grandparents arrive and laugh at their antics, seeing it as a sign they get along well. Inside, Tenryu announces that they are here to celebrate, though Sato and Akane have no idea why. Unable to stop arguing, they ask for an explanation, and the grandparents reveal their plan. They are getting married. Hearing that statement makes them drop their food in shock, completely horrified. Sato hopes it's just a metaphor or a riddle, while Akane, still in high school, remains clueless. Her grandmother Chiyo then mentions they only need to be 18 to marry and repeats that they are expected to wed Tenryu, as that he and Chiyo were once in love, but silly arguments drove them apart, leading him to marry the woman his parents chose. He provided a good life for her until she passed away 10 years ago, and he feels he has fulfilled his duty as a husband. Chiyo tells them she's been widowed for a long time, and Tenryu has been visiting her every night, though Akane quickly cuts her off, yelling not to give details. Tenryu explains that now, having lived their separate lives, they wonder what could have been if they'd stayed together, so they decided to bring their grandchildren together instead. Chiyo agrees and urges Akane to comply. As expected, Akane views it as selfish and insists she will marry for love, with Sato backing her up. Tenryu, unfazed, opens the door to the backyard and shows them a dog. There he warns Sato that if he refuses to marry Akane, he'll hand over the Hojo group to a stray dog he found, though he doubts it's capable of running the company. He adds that the group might die with him. Sato thinks he's insane, but his grandfather retorts, asking if sanity will help run a business. Chiyo pulls Akane closer and whispers a chilling threat that leaves her trembling. Tenryu then gives them 3 days to decide, ending their tense family meeting. After they leave, Sato and Akane avoid agreeing on anything due to their constant clashes and go their separate ways. Once in her room, Akane reflects on why she's always hostile toward him. It's because he always ranks first in class while she comes second. She calls Himari and asks what she'd do if forced into marriage. Himari immediately says she'd refuse, explaining she already has someone she likes. Shocked, Akane asks who, but Himari won't reveal it and turns the question back on her. Akane coldly replies that she only wants someone dead, thinking things would be easier if they died, even wishing for a meteor to hit them. Himari jokingly suggests marrying anyway to split bills and rent. Akane doesn't view those as valid reasons to marry. After that, Himari asks what she would do about what boys and girls do after marrying, referring to breeding. Akane finds it logical for having heirs, but only sees it as a way to have 100 babies, which leaves poor Himari even more alarmed. Meanwhile, Sato can't stop wondering why it had to be Akane, convinced she'd never stop bothering him at home if they ended up together. As Shisei stands beside him, she notices his distress and asks what's wrong. Seiko explains that his grandfather insists on controlling his life and that if he refuses, a dog will inherit the company. She asks if he'd rather live freely or take over the Hojo group. Sato says he'd do both if possible, but she tells him no one can have everything. No creature is ever truly free. Instincts and rules bind everyone. The best option, she says, is to work within those limits rather than avoid them. Not inheriting is still a valid choice, and if he ends up homeless, she'll stick by him too. Sato feels uneasy about that, but she reassures him. She understands he needs the company to fulfill his dreams and promises not to interfere. Although Sato's life is full of challenges, she promises to stay by his side, and he expresses gratitude for her support. The next day, he greets Akane in class, but she seems uninterested in talking. 3 days later, the big decision moment comes. They both declare with determination that they'll get married. They're surprised by each other's responses, though Akane makes it clear she doesn't love him at all. Regardless, Sato informs his grandfather that they'll handle the paperwork and wedding plans after college. However, Tenryu reveals they already arranged everything. A new house and their marriage registration are complete. They're taken to their furnished love nest, leaving no chance to back out. After settling in, Akane desperately calls out to her grandmother not to leave, but the couple is left alone. Once inside, Sato locks the door, prompting Akane to accuse him of trapping her. He calmly explains it's just a typical thing, and the door unlocks from the inside. Ignoring him, Akane storms off, and they soon start unpacking boxes. Exploring the house, they discover a cozy bathroom with a romantic jacuzzi setup, while Sato finds a peaceful study room that seems perfectly fine to him. Hearing Akane scream, Sato rushes to her, and she nervously points out there's only one bed. He immediately calls his grandfather, who explains it's because they're a married couple and must follow rule number 1, no sleeping on the couch or floor. Despite Akane's protests, her grandmother even encourages her to be close with Sato. After hanging up, Sato worries there might be cameras watching them, but Akane cuts him off, accusing him of wanting to do something inappropriate. Though he denies it, she grabs a pencil, claiming all guys in these situations think dirty thoughts. She quickly runs off to unpack her things but trips on the stairs. Sato catches her, but she refuses to thank him, convinced he has ulterior motives. Later, he heads to the kitchen for dinner, and when Akane shows up hungry, he suggests they eat together. Misunderstanding, she accuses him of wanting to eat her, but he calmly offers her a slice of pizza. As soon as she takes it, she runs off again, distrustful. That night, Sato settles into bed, only to be surprised when she quietly lies down on the other end. The pair quickly realize the bed is cramped, suspecting their grandparents did it on purpose. Sato feels Akane's fresh, sweet scent lingering on his back, making him nervous. She warns him, if you try anything, you're a dead man. And she means it. She's never done this before, nor had a boyfriend. He reassures her to relax, admitting he's also inexperienced, which makes her feel slightly at ease. Changing the topic, Sato asks why she agreed to marry him, but Akane avoids the question, stating it's just a formality. She's unhappy about the rules but determined to comply to achieve her goal. When Sato wonders what she'll do if a rule about kids is added, Akane freezes and shifts back on the bed. In the process, Sato accidentally grabs her butt, prompting her to twist his finger, threatening to break it despite his protests that the small bed caused it. In the present, Akane sternly warns Sato that if he tells their classmates about their marriage, he's a dead man. They agree to keep it secret, but Akane's paranoia doesn't stop there. She even suggests to make him with a bomb that would detonate if he spills anything. Her extreme distrust leaves Sato stressed, marking the chaotic start of their married school life. After their conversation ends, Shizi approaches Sato and comments on his fresh shampoo scent, asking where he stayed the night. Sato tries to dodge the question, but Shizi points out she also smells a gross scent. After biting his neck, she reveals she knows Grandpa's plan. She found out he secretly married Akane and already knows their address. Hearing this, Sato pulls her aside to talk in private. Shizi warns she isn't obligated to keep his secret and says he never asked for permission before getting married. Without waiting for his excuse, she demands something in return for her silence, hinting she hasn't decided what yet but now controls his fate. Later, in class, Akane complains to Sato as usual. Their interactions make others think they're a comedic duo or influencer couple. Hamari mentions that rumor, but Akane loudly denies being married, though Sato mentally notes that they actually are. At home, Akane asks why the fridge is full of juice boxes. Sato explains it's concentrated vegetable juice packed with vitamins to keep them healthy. Akane dismisses it as silly and says a balanced diet is better. He then shows her a pantry stocked with instant noodles, causing her to scream in horror. Akane relaxes slightly and asks Sato where the proteins are. He explains that's what protein shakes are for, but once he finishes making it, the result looks awful. Disgusted, Akane refuses to try it, criticizing his artificial way of cooking and blaming his obsession with that lifestyle. Realizing he's worse than she thought, she fears he can harm himself and decides to intervene. Determined to teach him real cooking, she prepares a meal, convinced he'll appreciate her effort and praise her skills. Meanwhile, Sato grows suspicious, thinking she might poison him since she keeps chuckling oddly. After setting the meal on the table, Akane assures him it's safe. Trusting her, Sato takes a bite and is reminded of his childhood. When asked for feedback, he calls it an average homemade dish. Before he can finish his critique, he angrily tries to snatch the plate, offended by his words. Sato refuses to give in, insisting he's not done. In the struggle, he ends up eating everything, which infuriates Akane, who then vows to make him suffer for it forever. Akane tries to express her frustration by hitting Sato, but he seems amused. The next morning, when she tries to wake him, he pulls her onto the bed after dreaming about Shizi, leaving her flustered. She forces him up, and in the kitchen, she points out the dirty dishes he left despite her doing all the cooking. Sato casually suggests using clean plates and says he'll only wash dishes once they pile up to the ceiling, which annoys her. She also scolds him for leaving toilet paper rolls and soap wrappers around. Sato insists trash should be thrown out monthly and claims it's pointless to reject waste. Akane, shocked by his mindset, doubts if he's even human and refuses to live in a mess. Sato apologizes for not being a neat freak but complains about daily baths, making her miserable about living with him. On their way to school, he reflects on how different they are and wonders if things will work out. That night, she scolds him for playing questionable video games, warning that people who enjoy those games could turn into criminals. When Akane tries to take the game console from Sato, the doorbell rings, making her let go abruptly. Sato loses his balance, falls to the floor, and accidentally unplugs the console. A few minutes later, she mentions that the package was just his belongings, so Sato goes to retrieve them. Afterward, he heads to the bathroom to mentally prepare for the next day, but upon entering, he finds Akane in the tub. Startled, he leaves to give her privacy, but since she doesn't react to his presence, he worries she may have fainted. Concerned, he re-enters and confirms she's only asleep. However, when he tries to move her, she ends up falling on top of him. To make things worse, she wakes up mortified and assumes he's a pervert. Sato attempts to explain, but Akane bluntly asks if he saw her lower half. His silence makes her angrier. Later, while getting ready for bed, she convinces herself that she must have dozed off due to exhaustion, so she finds his story believable. She tries to ask him about it, but Sato brushes her off, saying he's going to sleep, which irritates her. The next morning, feeling upset, Akane throws herself at Himari and confesses that there's someone she's struggling to get along with but wants to fix things. Himari suspects it's Sato, but Akane quickly denies it, swearing she'd never do anything with him. Frustrated, Akane admits she's at her limit and could explode if they keep arguing. Himari suggests she hug him, but Akane dismisses it, so Himari urges her to talk things out instead. Akane claims it's easy for her since she's a social butterfly, but Himari disagrees, saying it's not just about getting along, it's about respecting others too. Meanwhile, Shizi speaks privately with Sato, who reveals his home life is hell, with constant fights that ruin his appetite. While Shizi eats, she advises him to divorce, but Sato refuses, determined to inherit the Hojo group and not waste his efforts. Shizi says she doesn't want him to suffer and suggests he try to get along with Akane. Sato says it's impossible since they're completely incompatible even biologically. Shizi points out that while humans have preferences, it's mostly laziness and relationships need compromise. She asks if he's tried meeting Akane halfway, but Sato stays silent, unable to answer. Keeping in mind the importance of understanding others and staying in control, she notes that any CEO should possess that skill. There's only one possible outcome, Sato carrying her in his arms. When he asks why, she simply says it makes girls weak. Later, when Sato returns home, Akane greets him with an intimidating glare. He tries to avoid a confrontation, but she grabs his arm, making him tense. However, she quickly clarifies that she wants a serious talk about how they can stay married. She admits they're heading toward divorce, which benefits no one, so they sit at the table with tea to discuss things calmly. Akane confesses she might hate him, but if they must stay together, they need to find ways to make it more bearable. Sato agrees since he doesn't want to live in misery, though she warns him not to be rude. Returning to the topic, he suggests setting boundaries to ease tension and find a middle ground. Akane agrees, pointing out that household chores have been her main frustration. Sato offers to handle laundry and dishes, explaining he prefers doing them in bulk to save time. Akane warns Sato that leaving things untidy could invite bugs, but he brushes it off as normal. She points out that they aren't in the wilderness and messes can spread germs, so he needs to clean daily, even if it's inconvenient. Sato remembers Shizi's advice and agrees to do the dishes regularly. Akane asks if he has any requests, and embarrassed, he asks her to be patient if they accidentally touch in bed. She thinks it's perverted but agrees, setting strict rules, no hands under clothes. She also insists he play horror games with headphones and out of her sight. They agree on boundaries, and Sato mentions that expressing gratitude strengthens bonds. Akane asks him to compliment her cooking, even if it's just okay, since preparing meals takes effort. Later, she tells Himari that while she doesn't feel closer to Sato, they did talk for 5 hours. When Sato enters the bedroom, Akane quickly ends her call and invites him to touch her. but he clarifies it's only accidental contact, leaving her embarrassed. Another day, while walking home, Sato tells Shizy his conflict with Akane isn't resolved, but that he'll try to make amends. He asks for her help and later gives Akane a strawberry shortcake, remembering a note from her freshman essay. Surprised, Akane laughs, thanking him with a sweet smile that surprises him. At dinner, Sato compliments her cooking and she beams, her eyes shining, making him blush. While washing dishes, he reflects that Akane usually finds reasons to be annoyed. He wonders if she's up to something, but then realizes that when she smiles, she's truly beautiful. One evening, Akane asks Sato if he has time to watch a movie she rented. Sato suggests she use the TV alone, but Akane shyly clarifies that she wants him to join her. The movie turns out to be a 24-hour unedited film of kittens, and she manages to convince him to watch it with her. Akane enjoys the film thoroughly, though Sato eventually falls asleep. When it ends, Sato wakes abruptly, and Akane suggests they watch one of his favorite movies next. Sato explains he prefers games over movies and jokes she might get hooked. Akane insists she'd never get addicted, but 30 minutes later, she's having fun playing games with him. Sato is surprised by how enjoyable it is spending time with his longtime rival. Before bed, Akane thanks him and Sato offers to buy her favorite games and pick some movies for next time. Akane then asks him to stop addressing her so formally and call her by her first name. Flustered, Sato agrees. The next day at school, Himari notices they're no longer bickering as usual, which feels unusual. Akane asks Sato if their relationship has improved, but he quickly denies it, feeling uneasy. Without realizing it, she nervously calls him by his name, which Himari immediately picks up on. Embarrassed, Akane rushes out of class to avoid further questions. Later, Sato heads to the library, where Shizy surprises him and notices he's holding a book on communication skills. Sato explains he's trying to improve his relationship with Akane and finds the book helpful, as it emphasizes teamwork for building bonds. Motivated, Sato approaches Akane in the hallway. Though nervous, she reminds him she prefers not to talk much at school. Undeterred, Sato asks if she's busy after school. She mentions needing to study but has no plans with friends. He then suggests they go shopping together, which Akane misinterprets as a date. Before she can finish that thought, he pulls her into a classroom for privacy. She calls him a pervert for the move, but he clarifies that she brought up the idea of a date. Akane argues that guys and girls don't hang out without a reason. Regaining his composure, Sato explains he meant errands, offering to help her carry groceries. Both laugh nervously, eventually agreeing it's just grocery shopping. After arranging a meeting, Akane heads to the living room and unexpectedly bumps into Himari. Surprised, Akane recalls that Himari was supposed to be leaving for work, but Himari explains her shift was canceled and invites Akane out for ice cream. Akane declines, explaining she already has plans with someone, prompting Himari to assume it's Sato since Akane rarely mentions others. Himari teases her about it being a date, making Akane flustered. Panicking, Akane denies it and rushes off, accidentally stepping on Shizy, who reveals she was waiting for her as part of a trap. Shizy asks if Akane wants to team up to uncover Sato's plans, but still confused, Akane runs away again and finally meets up with Sato. Nervous, they head to a nearby convenience store to buy groceries, with Akane teaching Sato how to choose ingredients based on price and quality rather than grabbing the first item. They notice a crowd gathered for a chicken breast sale, and Akane hands Sato her bag, determined to compete. However, she's quickly defeated, and Sato tries to help but meets the same fate. Laughing off their bad luck, they decide to try again another day. Sato initially refuses, but she insists he join her next time. Her smile flusters him, so he agrees. While walking home, he tells her she's hardworking and would make a great wife, surprising her pleasantly. She teases that they're already married. That night, Akane wakes to find Sato leaning toward her and accuses him of trying something. He explains she hugged him first, which she denies, asking for an explanation. Sato, cornered, admits he thought she looked adorable asleep and couldn't resist poking her cheek. He apologizes, flustering Akane, who nervously asks how cute she looked. Sato admits he nearly lost his mind, which surprisingly pleases her, so she permits him to watch her sleep briefly. Neither sleeps well due to their nerves. The next morning, they exchange friendly greetings, but Akane burns her toast, which is unusual. Sato points out she's acting odd, noticing he isn't dressed for class yet. Later, they share a meal at the store and Himari arrives, puzzled that they seem to be enjoying themselves, prompting an awkward justification. Akane accuses Sato of harassing her and insists she'll call the police. Regarding the food, she admits it was something she threw on the floor that he picked up, but Sato denies her claims. The two argue as usual, though less intensely due to their lingering embarrassment or their growing closeness. Back at home, Sato finds Akane studying and asks why she bothers if it's just a quiz. She reminds him he got a perfect score last time, and he smugly explains he never studies since he memorizes lessons in class, adding that her situation must be tough. Annoyed, Akane tells him to leave and throws a plush at him. Later, Sato knocks on her door with a late-night snack, offering a strawberry sandwich. Delighted, Akane wonders about his intentions but takes a bite and finds it delicious, giving her energy to study all night. The next morning, Sato brings her more food, but at school, Akane collapses in the hallway from lack of sleep. Himari scolds her for neglecting her health and always being so dazed. Akane is suddenly enveloped in a powerful aura, declaring that even if it means pushing herself to the brink, her only goal is to secure the top grade in class. Himari reminds her that her health matters more than grades and points out that she can't beat Sato anyway. Undeterred, Akane vows with fiery determination to surpass him even if it takes centuries. Himari laughs and mentions that they'll both graduate soon, asking if Akane plans to follow Sato to college if she hasn't surpassed him by then. Flustered, Akane denies it, saying that would imply she actually likes him. Later that night, Akane returns to her studies, but Sato stops by with a snack and finds her asleep at her desk. Realizing she's unwell, he gently checks her forehead and notices she has a fever. Though Akane insists she's fine, she reluctantly goes to bed. Feeling uncomfortable from sweating, Sato helps her cool down by wiping her face with a soft cloth. When she tries to get back to studying, he urges her to rest. However, Akane insists she must keep going to achieve her dream of becoming a doctor, someone who can save lives and ensure the people she loves stay healthy. Akane's parents can afford to send her to medical school, and her grandmother agreed to pay for her education if she married him. Because of this, she has to be polite to him. He easily gets good grades, but no matter how hard Akane works, she can never surpass him, which frustrates her. Sato tells her that some people are naturally more talented, but Akane responds that she hates when he says things like that, though she admits she has always admired him. This surprises him, and when Akane realizes what she said, she quickly asks him to forget it, clearly embarrassed. Soon after, Sato notices her fever has worsened and decides to call an ambulance. Akane insists it isn't necessary, saying ambulances are for people in serious danger and she couldn't forgive herself if someone critically died because of her. Unable to get a taxi, Sato carries Akane in his arms, explaining he can't ignore her suffering. Surprised by his strength, Akane realizes he cares deeply. As Sato runs to the hospital with her, he tells her he believes in her and her dream, confident she will never give up until it becomes reality. While running, Sato reflects on how he married a girl he dislikes but feels their marriage might still have a happy ending. One morning, Akane, now recovered from a cold, greets him warmly and their playful banter resumes. During their chat, Sato teases her about admitting she admires him, leaving her embarrassed. At school, Himari congratulates Sato on another perfect quiz score, but jokingly calls him dense, getting uncomfortably close before pulling away with a laugh. Akane quickly steps in, shyly warning Sato not to get too friendly with other girls since he has a wife, leaving him speechless as he realizes he's starting to think his wife is the cutest. The following morning, Sato rushes to his class when Akane calls out for him to stop. He refuses to pay attention, assuming she'll start speaking Japanese. In truth, she just wants a hand in a lunchbox, thinking he left it at home because he dislikes her cooking. However, when Sato admits he genuinely forgot it, she insists he eats every bite since she put in a lot of effort making it. During recess, just as Sato prepares to enjoy his meal, Shizi appears and demands he share the entire lunch with her. Sato declines, pointing out that she already had a big breakfast, but Shizi argues that men will never understand a woman's cravings. A quarrel ensues over the food, and Shizi takes advantage of her looks to turn the entire class against Sato. In the end, he gives in and agrees to share, but then Himari arrives and points out that he and Akane have matching lunchboxes. The whole class begins speculating that Akane prepared Sato's lunch, further fueling rumors that they are intimate every night. Flustered, they try to clarify that they aren't dating, but someone remarks that they've acted like a married couple from the start. Amidst the chaos, Shizi devours Sato's entire lunch, and when he confronts her, she nonchalantly claims she only eliminated the evidence for his own good. She then inquires about how things are at home and whether he's been getting that thing on his D at night. Later, Himari suddenly leaps in front of Sato to greet him, and when he warns her to be careful, she confidently replies that she's certain he'll catch her. As they walk to class, she asks if Akane really made his lunch, but Sato explains she just copied his. She then asks if he and Akane are dating and gets overjoyed when he says no. After she runs off excitedly, Shize watches from a distance and notices that Himari's expression changes whenever she's around Sato. That night, the couple is in bed when Akane hears a noise in the house and starts screaming, thinking it's a ghost. Sato wakes up but ignores her and goes back to sleep, frustrating her. Determined not to let him rest, she keeps talking until he finally agrees to check. As he looks around, she clings to him, begging him not to leave. The next day, Sato is in his study when a frightened Akane enters, claiming she heard something moving in the living room. He suggests she take a picture, but she's too scared, thinking she'll be possessed. When he asks why she came, she says it's to protect him from ghosts. Later, while Sato is in the bathroom, Akane keeps knocking, pleading to be let in. That night, she returns to the study to announce she's taking a bath and asks him to join her for safety. Hoping for some action, Sato agrees and later watches her silhouette through the blinds as she keeps talking to assure he stays. The following day, Sato spends time with Shizi, who instantly deduces that he has come to her with a suitcase packed with marital troubles. She clarifies that everyone requires someone to lean on and that it's perfectly fine for them to rely on each other. Sato then shares that Akane constantly mentions a ghost in the house and has turned his life into a chaotic spectacle. Suspecting there might genuinely be a spirit present, Shizi decides to investigate for herself. Later, she directly asks Akane if she's married to Sato, declaring that nothing escapes her notice and that she is well aware they're getting dirty under the sheets. To ensure she doesn't spill the gossip to the entire class, the pair drags her into an unoccupied classroom, where Akane, fuming, assumes Sato is the one who blabbed. Sato frantically insists that he didn't reveal anything, and Shizi confesses that she simply pieced it together on her own. Akane then comes to terms with the idea that it's fine if Sato's family finds out and apologizes for not telling Shizi sooner. Shizi then announces that their house is infested with spirits and warns that Akane will be cursed if she doesn't banish them. She further explains that if the situation persists, Akane's grades will plummet by 50 points in every subject, prompting Akane to desperately plead for her assistance. That evening, they escort Shizi to their home, and she immediately senses the presence of spirits lingering outside. Akane starts to freak out, but Shizi reassures her, promising to locate the source and eliminate it to eradicate the spirits. Inside the residence, Sato guides Shizi to his study, where she immediately accuses him of possessing books so explicit that even the FBI would be too embarrassed to conduct a raid. Akane, appalled, realizes he has been hoarding a library all along, but Sato defends himself, claiming he only reads ordinary novels. Within the study, Shizi stumbles upon Sato's underwear and like a total creep starts sniffing them, remarking that they smell like detergent. However, Sato quickly snatches them away before the situation devolves into a Sweet Home Alabama situation. Moving on, Shizi attempts to inspect Akane's study, but Akane adamantly insists they skip it, warning that only God knows what horrors Shizi might uncover. Instead, she leads her to their bedroom, the very spot where Akane first encountered the ghost. After meticulously analyzing every conceivable scenario, Shizi deduces that the so-called ghost they've been searching for is actually herself. As it turns out, she has been visiting the house for the past few days, and based on everything she overheard, she suspects they mistakenly believe she was a spirit. When questioned about why she never clarified this earlier, she explains that she obtained keys from Tenryu but opted to sneak in to avoid disrupting their speedrun making babies. As a reward for cracking the case, Shizi demands they cook her dinner, having thoroughly enjoyed Akane's homemade lunch in class. She then showers Akane with praise, declaring her the best chef in existence, despite the reality that the only thing Akane excels at making is an absolute mess. Completely falling for the flattery, Akane whips up an elaborate meal, and when Sato wipes the food off her face, she suddenly realizes they are far closer than she had initially thought. After supper, Shizi learns to play a feline-themed game while sitting in Sato's lap, but the man quickly realizes something is off with Akane. When he questions her, she insists she's perfectly fine and warns him that she'll pull his teeth out if he asks again. When Sin decides to take a shower, Shizi announces she will join him, casually revealing that she bathes with him all the time. However, Akane suspects they're doing more than just washing up and insists they bathe separately. Later that night, Akane sneaks into bed and admits she had an entire list of grievances she couldn't voice in front of Shizi. Sato puts his book aside to listen, and Akane expresses her frustration that he never told her he had bought the cat game. Sato explains that she was preoccupied with studying and he didn't want to disturb her, but Akane argues that she still needs breaks now and then. She also laments not being the first to try the game, though she jokingly claims that it's all part of her plan to get a head start and beat him. This sparks playful teasing between them, and Akane says she can finally rest easy now that she has vented. Sato then asks if that was the only thing troubling her, and Akane hesitantly admits there's something else. She gets a bit jealous seeing him and Shizi so close. However, she quickly changes the subject, warning Sato to keep his hands away from her rice cakes, to which Sato responds that he isn't touching her at all. At that moment, Shizi slips out from between them, unveiling that she has existed since the beginning of civilization. She discloses that she and Sato always shared a bed in their former home, clarifying that they've been together since childhood and that she feels the most at ease around him. Noticing Akane's discomfort, she prepares to leave, but Akane insists she stay, admitting she isn't ready to have her pipes cleared in the middle of the night while Seigo is asleep. Shizi then asks if Akane gets envious when Seigo gives her so much attention. Akane tries to act nonchalant, but Shizi catches her blushing and advises her to confess her feelings to Seigo. Otherwise, he'll never know. Himari had always wanted to be close to Akane, even when Akane showed no interest in being friends. Undeterred, Himari kept chatting with her and finding excuses to start conversations. Her persistence paid off when she finally convinced Akane to hang out by bribing her with a tasty strawberry parfait. Now the two sat in a cafe discussing Akane's feelings for Sato. Akane quickly dismissed any romantic interest, but Himari gathered her courage and admitted she had a crush on him. Shocked, Akane couldn't understand how Himari could like someone like Sato. Determined, Himari defended her feelings by listing his best qualities, mentioning his reliability in crisis. This triggered a memory for Akane. Sato had once looked after her out of concern. Himari continued, praising his confidence and hidden kindness, recalling how he checked on her when no one else did. She then asked for Akane's help in getting closer to him, pointing out Akane's seemingly strong connection with Sato despite their constant bickering. Though hesitant, Akane agreed. Himari suggested she jot down everything she knew about Sato to help her learn more about him. For the first time, Akane realized that despite sharing a home with Sato, she barely knew anything about him. Meanwhile, back home, Sato was calmly reading a book, until he noticed Akane intensely staring at him, pen and notebook in hand. Akane's strange behavior persists into the evening when Sato catches her lurking outside his window, clearly spying on him during dinner. She takes it further by recording a video of him eating. Feeling uneasy, Sato finally demands an explanation. Out of nowhere, Akane asks about his type of girl and favorite food. Seeing no harm, he replies that he has no particular preference in girls but loves steak and sushi. Akane raises an eyebrow at his expensive taste but is slightly disgusted when he reveals he prefers his steak rare, arguing that rare is just raw. The next morning, she exaggerates her findings to Himari, claiming Sato likes his meat raw. Instead of being repulsed, Himari finds this untamed side of him oddly charming. Surprised by her reaction, Akane shares more details, mentioning that Sato enjoys video games and reading before bed. Himari, intrigued, asks how Akane knows this, prompting her to quickly cover up by saying Sato had told Shizi. When asked what games he plays, Akane absent-mindedly describes his love for horror games in detail, unintentionally revealing how much she's observed. Later, in the kitchen, Sato looks disappointed to hear that fish is on the menu instead of steak. Akane had asked plenty about Sato's favorite food, so he assumed she'd make him steak. Feeling unexpectedly guilty about the misunderstanding, she decides to cook it herself. She and Sato go shopping for ingredients, and once home, Akane prepares the meal, anxiously awaiting his reaction. Sato takes a hesitant bite and is pleasantly surprised, even praising her cooking. Overwhelmed with emotion, Akane tears up as he finally acknowledges her skills. When Sato remarks that he'd love to eat this every day, Akane momentarily thinks he's proposing. He quickly corrects her, reminding her they're technically already married, but she's still thrilled. As she excitedly promises to cook for him, Sato notices how close they've become, especially her slightly provocative posture. The next day, Himari casually asks Sato about his type. He explains that he doesn't categorize people like that. True love means appreciating someone as a whole. Himari, though impressed, brushes it off, rumbling about guys only liking her for her looks. Sato sympathizes, saying it must be hard being attractive. Taking it as a compliment, she unexpectedly blurts out a confession, only to laugh it off and hurry to her seat before he can react. Sato is just as flustered, his face tinged with a faint blush that even Shizi notices as she emerges from beneath him. Later at home, while Sato is engrossed in his video games, Akane sneaks into his study, hoping to uncover something useful to report to Himari. As she rummages around, she finds a notebook labeled Secret and tries to read it, but before she can open it, Sato appears in the doorway, catching her in the act. Thinking quickly, Akane shifts the blame, accusing him of leaving it out on purpose to tempt her. To divert attention from her snooping, she asks for a book recommendation. Sato suggests a history book, claiming its unexpected humor is its charm. When Akane tells Himari, she attempts to read it but quickly gives up, finding it too complex. Akane apologizes for not requesting something easier, but Himari reassures her, saying it gives her the perfect conversation starter with Sato. Watching from the doorway, Akane feels a pang of jealousy but doesn't understand why. Inside, Sato and Himari talk effortlessly, and he thanks her for keeping his arguments with Akane from escalating. Himari laughs before revealing that Akane was actually the one who suggested the book. Sato frowns, puzzled by her motives. Himari then reminisces about how Akane once defended her from bullies who mocked her blonde hair. Despite the judgment of others, Akane never cared and remained by Himari's side. Sato praises Himari's hair, telling her it looks great on her. She smiles, remembering how Akane once said the same thing, boosting her confidence and ending the bullying. Outside, Shizi teases that Himari and Sato make a good couple since Himari has liked him since freshman year. She wonders if Akane disapproves, even though Sato is better suited with Himari. Later, Himari hugs Akane excitedly, saying she can now talk to Sato anytime and shares his compliment. She promises Akane strawberry tarts and suggests chatting at Akane's place. Akane's excitement fades when she remembers she no longer lives in her old home. She awkwardly says she now lives in a half-cut barrel. Himari senses the excuse, knowing Akane once boasted about her house. Akane reluctantly agrees and warns Sato to stay out of sight. She starts hiding his things, but before she's done, Himari rings the doorbell. Akane panics, unsure where to hide Sato, while he tells her to stall. Before she can finish, Akane opens the door and lets Himari in. With no time left, Sato ducks into the living room and the girls chat in the kitchen. Himari asks if she can take Sato on a date and Akane, confused, hesitates. Thinking Akane likes Sato, Himari reassures her that if that's true, she'll step back. Akane denies her feelings, but Sato overhears and feels a pang of disappointment. The next day, Himari gathers the courage to ask Sato out, and he agrees. Outside, Shizi asks Akane if she's okay with it, reminding her Sato is technically unfaithful, and that she clearly has feelings for him. Akane, unsettled, stays calm, telling herself it's for the best since their marriage is only on paper. That evening, Sato mentions Himari's confession and their date. Akane congratulates him but asks why he's telling her. He reminds her of their marriage and wants to make sure she's fine with it. Akane snaps that it doesn't matter because their marriage was forced. The next day, as Sato prepares to leave, he asks again if she's okay with it. She feigns indifference but stops him with a hug, admitting she's jealous and doesn't want to see him with another girl. Sato smiles, revealing he turned down the date and offers to make it up by shopping together, even buying her matching rings to ease her jealousy. She's flustered but takes his hand as they go on their date. The next day, Himari remains optimistic despite being rejected and vows to try again. She boasts that persistence is her strength, the same way she earned Akane's friendship. Akane, standing nearby, coolly says Himari needs her approval first. Sato will only date girls she allows. Watching from a distance, Akane vows not to lose him to anyone. If you're enjoying the journey of this series, please hit that like and subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any updates. All of your support helps me to keep bringing more high-quality recaps.